That would be my advice to you all. Don't dig in. Don't get mad. Don't even try to get even. Just stay on your course. Get our stuff done. Get the things you care about done. We weren't really running against Ed Galrein. We weren't running against Donald Trump. We were running for what we believe in.
Massey's loss is just the latest proof of President Trump's ironclad grip on the Republican Party. Other targets, like Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana and multiple Indiana state senators, also lost their primary bids to candidates that he backed. As Kentuckians went to the polls yesterday, the president took to social media, writing and reposting insults against Massey. Joining us now is national political reporter for the Wall Street Journal, Ken Thomas. Ken, thanks for joining us after a late night last night. As we just noted, we first saw this in Indiana, then this Saturday with Bill Cassidy in Louisiana, and now Thomas Massey's out. Do you think that this solidifies Trump's kingmaker status in the Republican Party, or is this more about candidate quality?
I think it's hard to see it any other way. I mean, the president has put a lot of resources into taking out these candidates who the White House views as not with them on a number of issues, and they've been successful. You know, there was a risk for them to get this heavily involved, and it has paid off. Massey, had to, face tens of millions of dollars in fundraising and ads against him. And he ran a fairly formidable race, all things considered. But I think in the end, it was just too much.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll see if that money was well spent. In his concession speech, Massey said that people want somebody that will, quote, vote for principles over party. Do you think he's going to be looking for another run soon? And what do you make of Ed Galrein? I mean, he has not necessarily been tested the way Massey has sort of avoided hard questions from media outlets, and hasn't seemed to appear more than a rubber stamp for Donald Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting that inside the room when Massey was giving his remarks, there were chants of 2028. So there's certainly among his hardcore supporters people who want him to run again. He certainly sounded like someone who has a lot left in him politically. But I think you'll have to see what the dynamics are like in 2028 if Trump still has that hold over the party. As far as Galrein, he really played a very cautious race here. He did not go out of his way to attend forums and debates and those kinds of issues. He didn't do a lot of interviews. And so, it's a safe seat now, though. So there's not a lot of upside to him extending himself right now.
We'll see if there's maybe a Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey ticket in the future. But President Trump finally made an endorsement in the Republican Senate primary runoff in Texas yesterday, backing the state's Attorney General Ken Paxton over longtime incumbent Senator John Cornyn. President Trump made the announcement in a 672-word Truth Social post, as one does, calling Paxton a true MAGA warrior. And he highlighted the Texas Attorney General's support of ending the filibuster and the so-called Save America Act. The president didn't have harsh criticism of John Cornyn, writing, "Cornyn is a good man, and I worked well with him, but he wasn't supportive of me when times were tough." The endorsement was not well received on Capitol Hill by Senator Cornyn's Republican colleagues, with several voicing opposition to the move due to Paxton's past scandals, including an indictment for securities fraud and a federal investigation on corruption allegations. Senator John Hoeven of North Dakota told reporters, quote, "Well, obviously, I support Senator Cornyn." Meanwhile, Senators Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska said they were disappointed, with Murkowski adding, quote, "I think that this puts that seat in jeopardy." And as the New York Times puts it, quote, "Stone-faced Senator Roger Wicker of Mississippi refused to answer questions about the endorsement as he exited the chamber following a vote." Majority Leader John Thune, who has supported Cornyn, was asked yesterday about Trump's decision. Let's give it a listen.
I think you all know my position on this issue. I've made it very clear for months now. And Senator Cornyn is a principled conservative. He is a very effective senator for the state of Texas. But none of us control what the president does. He made his decision about that. That doesn't change the way I feel And I am certainly supportive of, will continue to be supportive of Senator Cornyn and his reelection.
We do not see Republican senators breaking with President Trump very often, and it usually leads to untimely outcomes for them. But is Senator Murkowski right? I mean, is this the accelerant for turning Texas blue for Democrats when it comes to Ken Paxton against James Tallarico in a general runoff?
That's the fear. Republicans are concerned that now they're going to have to spend upwards of $100 million to keep this seat safe. This is not a seat that should be in play. We're reporting this morning that Senator Tim Scott, who leads the NRSC, actually called the president before this endorsement came out and asked him to reconsider. The president obviously went forward with that. So that speaks to this concern within the Senate. I mean, also keep in mind, John Cornyn is very popular among his colleagues.
Right.
He's a former Senate leader. And so I think a lot of them would like him to continue to be in the Senate. They see him as someone who can work with them on a lot of issues. But this also just makes the Senate much more difficult to manage. You now have people like Thom Tillis, Bill Cassidy, potentially John Cornyn, who are not going to be, that interested in doing the White House's bidding after all of this.
From a money and fundraising perspective, how is it problematic that Trump and his campaign operation have decided to spend this amount of money across these primaries?
Well, the risk is the president has about $350 million in his super PAC. You might have to now devote a significant amount of money from that into Texas that could have been spent in North Carolina or Maine or Ohio or any of these other states that are going to be central to Senate control. And so, it's hard to believe that there's going to be a resource issue.
Right.
Fundraising is
right. Like, should we be viewing this as a zero-sum game, or is there more than enough to go around?
There's probably more than enough to go around, but it's money that you probably didn't have to spend in Texas that you'll now have to earmark for it.
Ken Thomas, national political reporter for The Wall Street Journal. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.